For Bitcoin, I want to start off with the short-term timeframes over here. We did hit the short-term timeframe easy target based off of yesterday's analysis, which was a combination of hidden bullish divergence on the 4-hour, plus momentum also is turning up, plus even 4-hour jewel turning up right there as well. And of course, those somewhat are actually pretty significant negative funny rates that we did see. And in this case, we hit the easy target on it right around the 382, which is 30,450. And now it's a game of range resolutions in the way that I look at it. So I want to come at today's analysis a little bit more nuanced because I don't really have like a super big bias in this current range because we're quite literally in the middle of an overall trading range. So it's like short-term timeframes versus the daily range, which obviously matters a lot more. But what I would like to call attention to is two major areas that I'd be looking at for validations of traps on both sides. So in this case, I would actually be looking at any sort of an hourly closure below about 30,250. This is on BitMexico, by the way, as validating a bit of a short-term bull trap right here, with very likely another stretch back down to the bottom side of this blue box. That would have major implications for higher term timeframes, with judging targets lower, basically back down to the prior daily range lows, which is in like the $28,000 to $29,000 region. But ultimately right now, it does look like the Bulas are going to continue to have the balls in their court, and I would actually give them the benefit of the doubt, right? Or it's not that I give them the benefit of the doubt, it's like they do get the benefit of the doubt because right now they are the ones in short-term control. But here's the thing, and I really want to bring this one full circle because it really nothing of significant interest is happening as of this exact moment in time. Where things actually start to change around, and let me just get rid of this for the moment here, would be with an hourly closure basically above our current high. Or if you wanted to wait for the 0.5, that'd be about 30,800 or 30,850 if you want to be super exact. At that point, things get a lot more interesting for the Bulas, as I would be looking for another decent short-term time frame move, somewhere between about 31,200, perhaps even as high as this breakdown right here, which is about 31,600. But here's the major thing: if we start to see higher term time frames close above these regions here, especially this one, 31.6, but even the 618 here at 31,200, the probabilities of this being a bit of a bear trap get increased significantly, and I would be looking for this rally to continue onwards and forwards, probably into the next few weeks, because remember, nothing's really changed over here as far as this chart goes. I know this chart might get a little bit of hate because I talk about it too often, but I don't really see any reason not to talk about it until it's completely invalidated. So we'll talk about invalidation in a second, but for right now, it is the daily volatility versus momentum signature, of which anytime that we have seen the daily BBWP below 10 percentile, the expansion phase from that has led to an average move of 20%, some cases a little bit more, actually even closer to 30% in some cases. Done over the course of, I think it was like basically 2 weeks or so. We saw that first expansion happen over here actually on the 29th to 30th of May, which was kind of governing our upside targets. And thus far, so far so good. So this signal is essentially valid as long as we see the daily stochastic momentum oscillator continuing with upside pressure, which will be consistent as long as Bitcoin's close in dailies above 29,800. Here's the thing though: if Bitcoin even comes back down below the lower term time frame range resolution point, which would be about 30,250, I do think that we're going to test back down basically to that momentum pivot, and probably Bitcoin's going to have a major trap to the down, to the downside in this case, if that does happen. But until that happens, I actually do still look at the statistics as favoring the Bulas here, as again, the daily stochastic momentum oscillator has gotten the correct direction from that volatility expansion point for about 10, or not about, but quite literally 10 of the last 12 iterations that we've seen just in the past couple years here. So ultimately, I'm always going to be reliant on that until proven otherwise. And obviously that will have targets, to the upside in this case, which would be, I believe, about 35,000 bucks, give or take in this case, would be about 20% move. Obviously, if we get a little bit more on the upper end of that, then that would be, I think, what is, at least in my opinion, the best case scenario for Bitcoin here over the next month or two, which would be, perhaps at around 38,000 bucks, let's call it. I do think that again is, a bit of hopium if that were to happen. And obviously a lot of things would need to happen before that is even relevant. So yes, until we see this signal invalidated, I would still say that Bulas still have the balls in their court. But if I didn't tell you that I have major reservations about this price action, even on short-term timeframes, I'd certainly be lying to you, because this all of the rallies just feel so fucking weak for Bitcoin. So in this case right here, again, I need to, in order to consider that this rally really is real and going to have those legitimate targets in mind, and very likely stops along the way. Again, those targets would be relevant in like 2 weeks still, or maybe more like 10 days from now, I guess. until Bitcoin closed above the 618 here. That's where the probabilities of this being a bit of a short-term boolah trap on this short-term rally get negated significantly. So you can kind of see that we're literally in the middle of that overall range. So to me, that's complete gamble in this case. Now, I do want to go over the short-term timeframes a little bit more here because we do have a few things in the underlying market dynamics that are interesting. We do see that funding rates for the hourly are still negative. Now, they're certainly not as negative as what we saw yesterday, which was a lot more of an easier call for a short-term upside move. In this case, it's just negative 0.004%. So it is still negative, but not anything like astronomical here. And if we go reference stochastic momentum, you will notice that the medium-term timeframes are going to start to turn up again if Bitcoin can just hold 30,100 on a 6-hour. On a 4-hour, we will see it continue with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above 30,000 bucks. And even a 3-hour, I think, is probably still up as well, above 29.9. Again, all of these signals are quite weak in my opinion, simply because we're looking at corrective signals as identified by the volatility signature that you can see right here, which is going to be basically the same thing as BBWP as well. Yeah, very, very close in this case. So not really getting anything like super unique by looking at both of them to kind of reference an earlier comment that I saw. But ultimately, all of these are kind of secondary to the higher term timeframes in this case. 12 hours still corrective here. 870 is still the magical number. So the longer that Bitcoin can essentially hold in the middle of this range, the better for boolahs, obviously. And that would still satisfy the daily condition that we laid out over here. Again, with specific interest on 29,750. And let me just see what the index says. Basically same number. So I'd actually put quite a fair bit of weight on that. And then we do have, I think the 2-day, it's still up as well, above 28.1. And then the 5-day, the 5-day also makes me consider that upside first is more likely on the higher term timeframes. And then, the question is, at least in my opinion, the question is, where does Bitcoin get its next lower high on the higher term timeframes, which I'll address on the weekend's macro video. Or if you don't want to wait for that, you can also view the macro video from last weekend as to why I think that Bitcoin is very likely to test reasonably close to our current lows, or probably even make new lows. But that's unlikely coming, in the short term here. It probably coming, if it is going to come at all, a little bit later this year, most likely in Q4 if I had to guess. But timing never really been my forte in this case, and this would be the monthly right here. Again, long term, I think at best we're going sideways between like 20,000 and 40,000, and maybe next year we see a little bit of a try back towards 50, something like that. Could make sense as like a best case scenario. But for right now, if you're just keeping it on the short term timeframes, I think it's rather cut and dry here. I think that pretty much does it for that. Maybe I'm missing something on the very short term timeframes. Hourly is gonna potentially have hidden bullish divergence. Doesn't really look too strong to me, nor is it even there at this moment anymore. But if we do close back above like 35.50, that will be there. What about maybe a bi-hourly? I'm looking for something that's obvious here. No, not really getting anything that's obvious here. All momentum oscillators are basically in the middle of their pain, so I'm not really seeing anything that's like very compelling from a buy standpoint. Here is the hidden bullish evidence that we identified yesterday on the 4-hour, but that's, you already got the easy move from that. So I think that's a good place to leave it off. We're only 8 minutes and 30 seconds into this video. I'll just quickly talk about the Krown trading application over here because this one's rather short. We do have a sale going on right now. Make sure to watch the promotional videos that accompany any one of the programs, as that's going to explain who they're for and who they're not for, so you can make an educated decision for yourself if it's even relevant to you. And then obviously we also have our Bybit show links, and then also my Instagram show links, of which I need to remind people because I still actually get messages about this. So, I do need to be serious about this. But hey, on Instagram, there's a bunch of scammers with relatively similar names to my real accounts. The only real accounts that I have are in the link in the description below. Any other account is a scammer. I'm never going to ask you to trade your accounts. I have no interest in doing such things. My hands are definitely this week very fucking full with trading my own accounts, as else can tell you. And please just be aware that if it sounds too good to be true, if they're promising like anything, basically, it's a fucking scam, man. Whether it's coming from like someone that has a similar name to myself or like another account, please be aware that a lot of the time it's just it's just straight up scam. So I think that is going to do it for that's going to do it for this one. I want to wish you well. Hopefully that was helpful, and there you go, sirs and sirs.